Well, joining us live now is our friend, former international spokesperson for the IDF and senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus. Jonathan, thanks for joining us at such an important time. Hassan Nasrallah was the terrorist kingpin at the head of Hezbollah for 30 years, now eliminated, and it played out like a scene from The Godfather as Bibi was on his feet at the UN. Talk us through, please, this consequential operation.
Yes, so what we know so far is that Israel had various opportunities to do this and chose not to, but now another opportunity availed itself. And finally, the decision by the Prime Minister was there, and the conditions on the ground were as they needed to, which means that Israel had live and reliable intel on the ground that Hassan Nasrallah and others, but Hassan Nasrallah was the target, were indeed in their command bunker. And Israel had the aerial assets, fighter jets, ready in the air. And after the decision was made and the intel was verified, Israel delivered, I think it's reported 83 tons or 83 bombs, each one of them weighing almost a ton, which is, if not the largest, and one of the largest in modern history of a single strike against a single location. I think it's the largest in Israeli history. And of course, Israel used that amount of ammunition in order to be absolutely sure and safe that there's no way for anybody to come out of alive out of the Hezbollah command bunker in the southern part of Beirut. And as such, less than, I'd say, 24 hours later, not only Israel declared it, but eventually Hezbollah and their Iranian masters have admitted that Hassan Nasrallah and many of his seniors, in fact, the remaining part of Hezbollah's supreme military command, were indeed eliminated. And since then, what Israel has done is continued to strike various important and strategic military targets in Beirut, not relenting from the pressure here, and really delivering very sharp messages to Hezbollah, to the people who support them, and to anybody else that this is not over at all. And Israel is applying pressure on Hezbollah, because now is the time to continue to strike them. But definitely very, very consequential times. I'm sure that we'll speak about Iran and the US and the regional perspective, but this really is decision time for regional powers.
And of course we will. And just focusing once more on Hezbollah, it was formed to be the most formidable part of the Islamic Republic's ring of fire around Israel, that buffer to stop Israel from thwarting its hegemony, to take out its nuclear power. And this IDF operation was named Operation New Order, the hit on Nasrallah. So what now? Can we expect a new order?
I think that's more of a wish than really reality yet. Of course, that's something that Israel needs to aspire to. I think that Hezbollah is still, despite the fact that the IDF over the last 2 weeks has degraded many of its military capabilities, at the end of the day, it is still a very powerful nation-state organization. It controls budget, it controls people, it has tremendous resources, and it had, up until 2-3 weeks ago, a very formidable arsenal of tens of thousands of rockets, missiles, advanced weapons, and a very strong link with Iran. So for this to be a new beginning, or to be a new Middle East, we're still not there. Hezbollah needs to be defeated. And when we speak about defeating an organization like Hezbollah, that is a difficult task, because they are very deeply entrenched in Lebanese society. To really defeat in the military and political term would mean, of course, would necessitate a ground maneuver all the way into Beirut. And I don't think that is in the cards now. But I think that Israel can definitely significantly degrade Hezbollah's capabilities, make sure that they won't pose a threat for the coming years, and deal them a severe political and military blow, perhaps enough for them to be weakened domestically. But really, at the end of the day, as long as the Islamic Republic of Iran exists and has this hostile terror supporting regime that continues to fund and provide weapons to its different proxies in the Middle East. It's a matter of time until these proxies will be replenished with weapons. So the real source of the matter, and for there to really be a new order, would actually mean dealing with the Islamic Republic of Iran and not only its proxies.
And as you mentioned, this all began less than 2 weeks ago with the Hezbollah pager explosions, then the walkie-talkies, then a series of attacks on Hezbollah leadership. We can show, I think, an image where we can see the entire upper echelon of Hezbollah taken out, culminating with Nasrallah's assassination. And by any assessment, this is a quick and stunning series of actions. What's your perspective on that?
Frankly, I think it's a work of beauty. And it's many, many years of hard work by Israeli intel officers, military and Mossad, and I think Shabak as well, but mostly military and Mossad, who for years diligently have been collecting intelligence, building the infrastructure, vetting the intelligence, and then having things prepared for when the political decision was made and the directive was given to the IDF to execute. And it is no small feat to have that level of penetration into a highly secretive and disciplined terrorist organization that is based on family and religious and ethnic ties, but to be able to penetrate that organization, its lines of supply in order to provide them with explosive goods embedded within their beepers, and then to have tabs and live information about the whereabouts of its seniors, and to be able to say that now we have struck a certain senior and we confirm that he's dead before Hezbollah acknowledges it. And the IDF has done this 6 or 7 times in the last 2 weeks. It is definitely something to be happy and proud of. For me, I am, of course, there's sorrow mixed in with the joy here, because we see the absolute brilliance of Israeli defense establishment when it comes to Hezbollah, which is a result of many years of hard work and preparations and training and budget and priorities. And of course, that is in stark contrast to how Israel prepared for, or didn't prepare for, Hezbollah, and of course for Hamas, sorry.
Yes.
And what happened on October 7, and that's a comparison that many are making, and I cannot not make it. I think it is very relevant because Israel has shown that it has tremendous capabilities to reach enemies far away, thousands of kilometers away from its border, and to strike with great precision and with effect, as well as take out very difficult targets in Lebanon, in Yemen, in Iraq, in Syria. It is, of course, regrettable that we didn't have this level of preparation when it came to Hamas. If we look forward and if we think where this is going to take us, I think very important moment, and I was very happy and relieved to read the press statement issued by President Biden, which is a wall-to-wall support of Israel. First and foremost, Israel's right to defend itself. Second, it is a very clear indication of who Hassan Nasrallah was, what Hezbollah is. They are bloody terrorists who have American, Israeli, and Lebanese blood on their hands, and that Israel has done the free world a good service by taking him out, and that the US will continue to support Israel's right to defend itself and to defeat its enemies. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but I think that was the gist of the message, which is, I think, exactly what we should be hearing from our strongest and most important ally. I know that the US has a significant posture of military capabilities in the region. I know that the Iranians are looking very carefully and calibrating their response to this action according to what they see from Israel and from the United States of America. And this is now the time for Israel, for democracies, for the West to strike at the powers of evil. It is the time to deal Hezbollah, if possible, a fatal blow. And if Iran dares to get into this and directly involved by engaging in combat against Israel or the US, then it should be the best possible opportunity to really dial the Iranians back many, many years when it comes to their nefarious terrorist programs in the region. Sadly, I think that the Iranians are smart enough and disciplined enough, and they'll be reading the map and analyzing the situation. And I don't think that they will engage either Israel or the US. And I think that they will continue to use Arabs to do the dirty work for them, whether it's Lebanese, Syrians, Palestinians, or Jordanians, or Iraqis or Yemenites. And at the end of the day, Israel is now on very high readiness. There's already been a missile attack towards Tel Aviv or central Israel, and there's high levels of readiness in anticipation of incoming rockets from Syria and from Iraq. The coming days will be very sensitive, but I think after the tremendous success that Israel has had over the last 2 weeks, definitely room for a bit of respite and a bit of joy in these tremendous achievements. Not to lose focus of the aims of the war. Of course, we have 101 Israeli hostages that need to be brought back home from Gaza, and we need to return 70,000 Israelis to their homes along the northern border. Until that is done, we haven't really achieved anything of substance.
And you spoke about joy at the death of Hassan Nasrallah, who, of course, had the blood on his hands, not just of many Israelis, but many thousands of others, Americans, European, Lebanese. He also helped to maintain Bashar al-Assad's murderous leadership in Syria. And we have video here of Syrians celebrating the assassination of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. Let's take a look. So those are celebrations in Syria. Many Arabs across the Middle East, privately and some publicly, happy to see Hezbollah being defeated, certainly to an extent. And Hezbollah, of course, was rocketing Israel since October the 8th in supposed solidarity with Hamas. So how could the fact that Hezbollah are in disarray affect Hamas now, who themselves are so badly degraded, and the fate of the hostages that you mentioned?
It's a very difficult time for the Iranian axis of evil, no doubt, because Hamas is on the ropes. It's down, but it's not out yet. I think that Hamas was really hoping that Hezbollah would be able to divert Israeli attention and capabilities and to kind of get Israel bogged down in Lebanon. That has been the contrary. Israel has been very successful in degrading Hezbollah capabilities without Hezbollah being able to do anything of real substance. And I think that Hamas is quite in despair now because they had a lot of hopes, I think, on Hezbollah. Up until now, none of the other Iranian proxies have made any meaningful attacks against Israel. They've been terrorizing Israeli civilians and they've been rupturing our normal lives, but in war scale activities, nothing really of significance. And Hamas, I think they're feeling pretty alone. Those that are left in Hamas, pretty alone, and the prospects aren't very good. And what Israel has shown, what the Israeli population, its military, security forces, and leadership have shown, that we are not straying away from the course, that there is a very clear goal here. We need to defeat our enemies. And with Hezbollah, we were very well prepared with targets, with intel, and with capabilities. And that has now been really shown with quite efficiency. With Hamas, it took us a lot of time and casualties. But at the end of the day, Hamas is in a very bad position. And if this expands and Iran is also targeted, then Hamas will be alone and there won't be anybody to come to its existence. And then it will be a matter of time before they'll have to come up with their hands above their heads with white flags. Israel needs to continue with the pressure, diplomatic, together with the US and the West, and to continue with military pressure, effective military pressure against Hamas in Gaza. And most importantly, take away control over the Gaza Strip from the hands of Hamas and turn it into a different reality where Hamas really fears a day where they do not control the Gaza Strip anymore. That is what Hamas is afraid of, because from a military perspective, they've all but been defeated. What Israel needs to do is to take control over Gaza from the hands of Hamas. When that will happen, that will bring about the complete demise of Hamas, and for Israel, a new and much better security situation in the south, and hopefully the ability to return our brothers and sisters home.
And Jonathan, you've been speaking globally, touring all around the world. You've been on the international media and, of course, social media as well. While Israel is busy restoring its deterrence, doing a great job for itself, for the region and the world, some world leaders and some personalities on the media don't see it that way. So I've even seen some calling the beeper attack itself an act of terrorism. How do you respond to opinions like that?
I think people who say these things, they're either terribly misinformed or they're blinded by hatred of Jews, which distorts their ability to call balls and strikes and really to see reality in front of them. And I think it's very regrettable when people are so blinded by their hatred against Israel and Jews that they cannot even say that the most direct and surgical strike in the history of modern warfare since World War II is indiscriminate and unfair, and the use of booby traps or ploys, or I've heard so much nonsense about this. It really tells who the person is and how long and deep they're willing to go in order to distort reality, even when Israel isn't to blame for anything, and to try to blame Israel for even when it is tremendously successful. And it's important to clarify, however you look at this, for instance, the beeper attack, it is as surgical as you can get in warfare. What Israel did was attack military infrastructure. The beepers that were handed out by Hezbollah to their operatives are part of the military infrastructure and are in themselves legitimate targets, and all of the people carrying them were Hezbollah operatives, some of them very senior, some of them less senior, but all of them were combatants. And it doesn't get any clearer than that when it comes to the application of the laws of armed warfare. And of course, none of our enemies give any consideration about morals in fighting, yet they are not criticized by the same people who are so quick to criticize Israel. It would have been great to see more support of Israel today and yesterday after Hassan Nasrallah was eliminated. And I think that he was an enemy of the West. He was an enemy of the free world, of democracies, of law-abiding societies. He was a criminal with blood on his hands. And I think anybody in the world who is for life, for freedom, for stability, for democracy, should rejoice and say, thank you, Israel, for getting one very bad person off the map and ridding the world of him. He was nothing good. And it's sad that many people aren't able to overcome their hatred of Israel in order to actually acknowledge good things done by Israel. I'm not saying that Israel is perfect and that we always do only good things. We also make mistakes. But at the end of the day, when everything is said and done, Israel is fighting for the forces of good, for democracy, for freedom, for civil rights, for the love of humanity and life, and we are fighting the forces of evil. And no matter how much people will try to distort that, that won't change.
And I think there's a silent majority that will certainly agree with you. You and I have been discussing these issues for almost a year now, mostly sad news we've had to contend with. This is definitely a positive step. We'll have to get together for a drink to celebrate. As always, we appreciate your perspective and your analysis. Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus, as ever, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Michael.